I think the first thing is, thanks for turning up. I was a little bit worried that everyone would wait until 10 o'clock until I'd finished. Clearly, if Trent Poly is number 3, Sheffield Poly must be number 4. Well, I'm in good company with you, Charlie. What we thought would be useful today, meeting all the people in the room, I know half the people, which I'm not sure is a good or bad thing, because they know quite a lot of stuff they've been involved. There's a lot of people in this room who've been involved in Merlin's success in various ways. Is really just to take you through the way that we deal with brands. And brands, I guess, on 3 sort of levels. The Merlin attraction brands that most of you will be familiar with. The IP-owned sub-brands that we're doing a lot of work on at the moment to try and see what we can develop ourselves to try and drive that side of the business. And then probably the one that's becoming more sophisticated, and you'll hear a little bit more about today, is IP partner brands. And what we'll try and do, if we've got a bit of time at the end, is if you want, we'll do a little bit of Q&A, if you'd like to ask us any questions. So, Merlin attraction brands, we have 12 brands, and hopefully, again, you'll be familiar with most of them. And we treat all the brands in the same way. We make sure that the brands have got a very, very clear proposition. And that's for twofold. That's for both the staff and people that are working for us, but then obviously more importantly when we're communicating those brands to the public. The most important thing though is when we're communicating everything with those brands is to make sure that we live up to the brand promise. And one of the things that I'm going to talk a little bit about is the process we go through to make sure that when we've done all the marketing fluffy bit at the end, there's a link into making sure that those brands are aligned, and when the public are coming into us, they're really understanding and getting what they think they're going to get. So, how do we do it? Those of you that have got FMCG marketing backgrounds, it's not rocket science. We look at 4 major things in each one of the brands. We look at where it's positioned in the market. And some of our brands are very, very close together and very similar on some of the theme parks, particularly in the southeast. So each one is positioned very specifically at a target group and very specifically on the type of entertainment that we're giving. And as part of that now, we'll have a set of values. And those are really things that we want to live up to and we want that brand to experience. And this is the bit, I guess, where if you're not a marketeer, you think I'm going off into fluffy land. But these things are really important because it kind of builds an architecture around everything that we're trying to do. And I've got some hopefully good practical examples afterwards of how we do that. And one of the things that we do to try and make that a little bit easier is we try and put a personality on a brand so that when we're sitting with 2,000 staff at Alton Towers, they can kind of really visualize what we're trying to do and really get themselves ensconced in that brand. And then probably the most important thing is an essence to each brand. And that's really about what's the heart, absolute heart of everything we do. So whether we're buying a retail item, whether we're putting in a new show, there is something at the heart of every brand that we're trying to get across. I did notice when I looked at the back, you've got absolutely no chance of deciphering this, but it's great, believe me. What this does basically, it takes those brands, and under each one of those headings, it tells you what are the different essences of each one, what are the different positionings, what are the different values that we've got. And then what I did, I thought Alton Towers is probably one of our most famous UK brands, is to look at how that works within Alton Towers. So when we sat down, we said, what are we trying to give people as they come to Alton Towers? We live in a big, bad world, and what we're trying to give people is a little bit of escapism. So you come to the door of Alton Towers, you have all your troubles in your bag, and you leave them at the gate. And you come in for a fantastic day out. And then how would we like to develop that and show that as a brand going forward? Is we like a little bit of joie de vivre. We like people to come in and enjoy what they're doing. And we like people to smile and really have fun and really be engaged with the family. All of you that are in this industry, you know, we're pretty blessed by the fact that we're peddling fun. And there aren't many conferences anywhere in the world where, you know, you can't have a smile on your face when you go and see people. I was talking to a couple of people earlier who's saying, you know, the feedback they see now live on social media, something that they've created, and people are saying that's the best time I had in my life. It's the most fantastic feeling. So we like to be peerless. And that's not an arrogant thing. That's just, we'd like to be better than everybody else. And if we can aspire to that, we've got a chance of at least attaining some sort of greatness in there. We'd like it to be electrifying, so when you go there with your family, the hairs are up on the back of your neck, your kids have had the best time they've ever had, and you become a hero parent. I've just taken my family over to Florida, busman's holiday, as they usually are, and I've gone to one of my favourite parks, Universal. And I know a lot of people here would have been to Universal. The first time, my 13-year-old boy was speechless. And if you've got a 13-year-old, you know that's pretty rare. And the other thing that was very interesting when we developed Alton Towers is when we got back involved in Alton Towers in 2007, we did a piece of research with some of our colleagues in the room here. And one of the things that had come across is that Alton Towers had become a meme brand. So when we did that research, the first thing we do is we say, bring something with you that represents Alton Towers. And the two major things they brought with them were empty wallets and those big buckets of sweets that you can only buy for 15 quid at the time. And we thought, crikey, we've got a real problem here. There's a lot of sort of latent love of Alton Towers. And we walked into the business. I remember going with Nick Varney, a colleague of ours, and we walked down the main street, and we've just paid our money to go through the door, and the first thing you saw on one of the lakes was a bumper boats ride where we wanted another 5 quid off you. And those kind of things now, we're very, very aware of trying not to do those things. So although you've got those kind of secondary upgrade things, we think very much about how we can be more big-hearted. So you'll find us doing a lot more stuff that is making us look, feel, and actually be a more big-hearted brand. Quite a few of you I know have been involved in the Merlin Magic Wand charity, and that's one route that we're trying to push further to give people that big-heartedness from what we do. So, the trouble with all that is that it's all very fluffy marketing, and the most important thing, I think, is how you make those things live. And again, if you've experienced some of these things, you'll hopefully see some of those things come through in the brands that we've got. And if we stick with Alton Towers, this brand alignment side is probably the most important and the most difficult thing that we try and undertake with everybody. This is quite a great guide. This is actually the Madame Two Swords version of him, which I thought was pretty cool. It's one of the very, very good figures that we've got. You know, this thought process that you can change things, you know, if you actually make that the brand stuff come alive is a really big thing in anything in life, and it's something that's really core and at the heart of Merlin. And when we talk about that, we talk about things, everything that's involved in the business. We spend a huge amount of time on staff training and making people really understand that it doesn't matter what job you've got in the business, you can make a difference to somebody on that day. So an example for that in Madame Two Swords, we encourage the staff more and more now, if you're walking around Madame Two Swords, whether you're the general manager or you're a contract cleaner, is walk up to somebody and say, let me take your camera and get this couple together and we'll take the picture of you. Just those little bits again that are trying to make people enjoy their day more. That goes into the retail side and the F&B side. We're working a lot more on retail at the moment. How, you know, at the moment, the classic that most of the things that happen in the industry, and we can be guilty of as well, is you kind of do all the stuff and then there's the obligatory shop at the end. Let's chuck them out in there and see if we can get another couple of quid off them. So we're trying to bring that in now and make it more of the experience. So if you look at Alton, some of the stuff we've been doing with the Smiler, if you go and look at the retail there's quite a lot of show elements in the shop where whether you're going to buy something or not, it's quite entertaining. I mean, obviously that has the knock-on effect that it increases dwell time and people do actually spend more money, but it's a fun experience. And then probably one of the biggest things is on new investments. I've got a little bit later on how we do new investments, because new investments, I think, you know, it's not just about us putting lots and lots of money into something. Is we think very, very clearly on what we're putting in and why we're doing it. And every one of these things, there's a saying in Alton Towers, they talk about, can it be FE'd? Can it be the essence of fantastical escapism? So even if we've got, you know, a group of junior students in there that are trying to do something for us, they have to pass an FE test to make sure that it's going to give somebody that little bit of escapism and make their day fantastic. So that's the big picture on what we try and do with the main brands. And then we have a number of IP sub-brands. Again, those that have been involved in this, we are retentive about research. Just because we've got experience in what we do, it doesn't make us any better than anybody else really in trying to judge what people's thoughts are. I'm continually amazed by the amount of stuff that comes back that we think is an absolute humdinger of an idea, and slam dunk, we'll definitely do it. You do the research and everyone says, I hate it. And you have to listen to that. So I couldn't put enough researches on there. We kind of research, we refine, we research, we refine. And every single time what we're trying to do is we're trying to build these compelling propositions. And the compellingness is what is going to get people to come to us as an attraction and hopefully come back to us, not letting them down. And again, when we talk about some of the external IP side of things, you'll see again how we're really keen to do that. The second thing then is to come back onto this brand alignment. So we might have this great idea of a coaster or a new sea life exhibition or a new Madame Tussauds, but does it fit in with all that stuff that we've done beforehand? Because there's got to be some consistency in there. And this kind of thing, those of you, I think it's Field of Dreams, you know, build it and they will come. I think that's something we're really trying to stay away from. You know, just backs up again about, you know, going back and asking our customers. I mean, the customer these days, it changes so quickly in what people want. You'll all be aware of that kind of stuff, that we really haven't got that. And then finally, we use a phrase, and one or two people here will laugh because they've seen it over the years, is tell them what it is, stupid. You know, the amount of fluffy marketing campaigns at the end of it, we don't actually tell people what we're trying to show them, is ridiculous. And we don't always get that right. I could give you some great examples. I won't, because we try and hide them. But I can give you some great examples where we probably missed the mark on that. So, you know, if it's a piece of metal, show them that it's a piece of metal. Don't get all fluffy about it. You might do that in a particular way in the brand, but it just gives you a really good thing. One of the best things that we do with this is we all have very supportive families in Merlin. We've had to have over the years, and you know, going home and saying to your to kids, you know, do you understand that? And them saying, what are you talking about, Dad? It is a real kind of eye-opener, because if that happens with one or two, it's going to happen with lots of people. These are some of the IP sub-brands. Hopefully, you'll be familiar with some of those things. I've got to ask, has anybody been on the Smiler? Yeah? Good? Yeah? Marmalises your head? Yeah. I love coasters, and I can only go on this twice in a row, and then I must be getting old. You know, why that's worked really well as a sub-brand, not just the actual ride itself. If you look at the spin-off areas that we've got in some of the secondary spends on retail and some of the games, very, very successful, because we've got people really into this whole sort of story about it marmalising your brain. And then some of the other ones we've got, probably our only character who survives as a brand icon in Merlin. We're not necessarily keen on characters, and it's not that we use them in the parks as good entertainment, but to have them as brand icons, our kind of thought is they've got to be more than just a fluffy character. And the main brand icons that work in this level are the ones that get on TV. And before we bought Gardaland, this team commissioned a television series in Italy, at Prezzemolo. So if you do the research, it's got this huge sort of underground following across the whole of Italy. So that's one that we think is worthwhile doing. It's quite a brave thing to do as that team, but you won't find many of those things. But because that works, we've just opened a water park in Italy, a small one inside the park, and we've actually dressed that under Prezzemolo. We've got other things there. We run a black box system through the Sea Life estate on compelling propositions, because we have lots and lots of Sea Life centres. Basically what we do is, in each one we have a black box, literally a room that's painted black. And taking the idea really from the museums, where they move temporary exhibitions around. Every year we'll have 10 bad boxes and we'll just rotate them around the business. Really, really good use of CapEx as you go around, because you're giving them something new every year, but you're not shelling out on new CapEx every time. So you can see lots of the different things that we're involved in there. So on to IP partnerships, and again, this is something that I think has become even more prevalent in the last few years. We were talking earlier about probably the most successful one ever is the sort of partnership in Universal with Warner Brothers. You know, if you've been lucky enough to go there, you'll see that kind of integration and how that can work with the brands working fantastically well. So how do we treat those partners? What we are doing more and more is that we're getting involved in what we call true partnerships, because in the sort of 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of logo slapping going on. So give us your money, love. we'll stick your logo on there, everybody's happy. And that doesn't really give us a long-term understanding of what we're trying to create for the customer. What we've also tried to do is look more and more on getting those brands that are aligned back to our essences and back to what our brands are around. So, you know, there are some really good examples of things now. If you look on a slide further on where we're using Horrible Histories, which is you know, very good small niche education brand, but we're using that with Warwick Castle, which is probably one of our smaller brands. But what a great brand fit, because the two things are really kind of complementary on what we're trying to do. But I think that's quite a big thing. You'll see us more and more probably, you know, we'll pick the parks or the businesses that we want to put brands in, depending on where we think that they fit best. The other big, you know, think big. There are some fantastic examples, I think, that both Merlin has got, but, you know, in the industry, there are things like Peppa Pig down in the south, which have been hugely successful. You know, there's no reason why anybody can't get involved in any big brand. If you can just make those different things work with a partnership, it's really kind of symbiotic. And then finally, again, keep coming back to this, deliver it. You know, when we're doing these things, is we're doing that research, we're following that whole process that we said beforehand, and we're absolutely making sure that if we said we're going to do something, we're going to make that brand live. And there's a little bit of stuff we're doing with the BBC at the moment. That I was up in Alton a couple of days ago, and that really is bringing something that is a sort of IP to real life. And if you got a chance, if you did nothing else this year, if you got it and just had a walk round and see what that is and how it's being brought to life. Even better if you've got kids under 5, because they'll actually understand what you're looking at. I've never heard of Iggle Piggle, but he's pretty big in my life at the moment. This is kind of showing you again some of those sort of partnerships we've been doing and trying to understand the depth of them. We did quite a lot of stuff with the BBC when the series Merlin was on. We created an attraction in one of the towers in Warwick Castle, the Horrible Histories we talked around, and I've got a couple of examples of these other ones as we sort of go through of how we've used them in the business. So how do we do that on the recipe? In whatever we're doing, is we try and understand what that brand's target market is and what it's trying to achieve at that moment. There's nothing better than a brand director being aligned with what we're trying to do, because the extra help they can give you on top of just the fact that there might be some sort of financial transaction on marketing and brand support is amazing. We take that brand alignment, come through every single slide I've got. Does it fit with what we're trying to do? Is it compelling enough? You know, what is going to make somebody get off their sofa in Milton Keynes and come to Thorpe Park? And it really is, again, you know, right at the heart of everything that Merlin does is we keep coming back to this sort of thing. And if we don't get one right, we do an awful lot of work to try and understand why we don't get one right and how we can put it right on the next time. And this, again, is one of those great quotes that we do. If you get the right IP, your 2 and 2 makes 5. And the examples that I've got here, I think, the examples we've got here on the SAW investment that we did at Thorpe Park. This is probably one of the most successful investments that we've done, because all of those things on the left-hand side came absolutely true. You know, we're in a target market of teenagers, young adults. We have got probably one of the strongest horror brands at the time. I don't know if you watch one of these films; they're awful. But I'm not in the target group, unfortunately, anymore. I don't know whether you've also noticed, if you ever get those surveys, you go further down every time when it says your age. I think I've dropped a couple in the last couple of years. But really did work well. And what I've got here, if you haven't seen it, I've just got some of the advertising that went with that.
Oh, so you thought the games were over. They've only just begun.
You don't want to go on just after your breakfast. but look, I mean, really successful. The return that we got out of that, and I think, you know, the truth is that piece of kit, hardware, is the third one of those that was put into the UK. And that's the one that everybody remembers. And the reason they remember that is, you know, we sat in a meeting and we said, well, you've got this thing that looks a bit like a saw. So if we did that, and we started off, I think, with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that showed our age because none of the teenagers knew what that was. And then, you know, the younger people in the room said, well, there's a new film out that's that kind of stuff. And we got hold of the guys at Twisted Pictures. And you know, even today, it's one of the most popular rides that we've got. So just another quick example. And again, hopefully some of you will have seen this. Some of the Marvel stuff that we've done in Madame Tussauds, this specifically London, but we're doing more things now with them around the world, where we've used the old planetarium dome, you know, looking at the target market about celebrity and entertainment. That's what Madame Tussauds is around. You want to come meet the people. Fits very well with the brand alignment. Very compelling. Lots of films out around this at the moment, so people want to come and see it. And we've got an introduction with lots of the figures. Some of those things you can dress up as Iron Man, and we've got sort of adult size and kiddie size, so you can get some great family photographs of those things together. And then finally, you go into a bespoke 4D film. And again, I've got a little bit of footage of some advertising that was done. And again, it's really delivered. We're back to the research, started off with research, right at the end, we're doing research all the time, what worked well, what didn't work well, just so we can improve it so we do it next time. Again, something that's been really successful for us. So I thought you might be interested a little bit just to see kind of what's coming next. You'll have read these things hopefully on Blue Loop, that's why we're here. But we've got some pretty exciting projects in the mix at the moment. And this is one of the biggest ones that we're working on. As I said a couple of days ago, I was in Alton, where we've done a really high-end partnership with the BBC that talks about CBeebies. CBeebies is by a country mile the highest under fives IP in the UK. Again, from that research, we've been through all the brands and we said, right, okay, who's the biggest? Could we go and do a deal with the BBC? I hope we've got anybody from the BBC in? Good. Very difficult company to work with. But again, being sort of tenacious about it and saying, look, we can really deliver this thing for you. We had a couple of their senior guys up there on Monday, and they were kind of blown away with how we've managed to make something that's sort of inanimate on the television come to life. And it really would be good if you could go. Back to that recipe again, we've gone through all those things. They're fairly obvious. You know, we're trying at Alton Towers. You know, we've got lots of coasters, we've got lots of things for the family, but we wanted something a bit more sort of preschool based. One of the things we're trying to do more and more with Alton is, you know, everything that's in there is pretty quintessentially English. And so the brands that we're trying to do more things with have really got to have that kind of Englishness to them. So you'll find us doing less things with some of the American IPs and things like Alton. So the things that we've got like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like this, will become more prevalent. Clearly, very clear proposition. Hey, it's live, come and have a look at it. You know, come and take part in it. We've got live shows, we've got rides, we've got all those different things. So when they've got some of the scientific factories, we've built the scientific factory so you can physically come and do it. And we've delivered that really in this whole land. So those of you again that know Alton, the whole sort of farm, storybook land area, which is quite a large area on the right-hand side as you go through, has been completely transformed into this. Another one at the other end of the scale really is Angry Birds. As of yesterday, is still the #1 app selling game around the world. And in Thorpe Park, which is a relatively low investment for us. We've used that, we've worked very closely with them, we've created a land. We've done some pretty basic old style rides, which are still great fun. We've done bumper car rides. We have done a 4D film. Absolutely bang on target audience. It fits in that brand alignment. You know, everything we do at Thorpe is supposed to be slightly bonkers fun for that sort of teenager young adult market. And just the fact that actually it's Angry Birds at the moment is it's so compelling for somebody, and the amount of work that Rovio are doing to try and push that forward. You've seen, again, lots of sort of stuff that they're very active in that market to try and do things. And then a little bit about the future. We have announced recently that we're going to try and step into the big world of sort of IP on midways, which again, you know, we've always done it pretty well with our own IP or with the licensed IP of things like Legoland, but those are kind of things that we know. But again, this kind of think big, could we do something else? So we approached Dreamworks, and they've got sort of 4 core brands, I guess, that they've got. They have lots of new films, but if you're Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar, and Dragons, they're the kind of ones that keep sort of churning through. Shrek is an evergreen. You know, one of the worries we had is, has it gone past its day? But there's plans to do more movies, lots of plans to do things behind that. And if you research it, the #1 animated character of recall and popularity is actually Donkey. So above some of the Disney brands. It's quite interesting when you do all that kind of work and you sort of say, crikey, because we're all kind of governed a little bit by our own sort of subjective thought process. So we've got a full partnership. We were in Burbank a couple of weeks ago. We've got the whole Dreamworks team working on it, which is astonishing, sort of some of the people that are walking in the room, that, you know, the honours they've got in filmmaking is tremendous, and they're really into this because they see this about more vertical integration into brands. Pretty much the only company that's doing that successfully is Disney, and they want to be more than a film company. You know, if you read the press, just films is not good. Three films a year, one goes pop, you don't make any money. So the more that they can spread that out, and you'll have seen Dreamworks doing lots and lots of stuff around the world, I'm sure. We're going to do multiple venues. So one of the core strategies on Midway for Merlin is about scalability. So all those Midway brands, Sea Life, Madame Tussauds, can we roll them out? Can we do them elsewhere? Will other people like them around the world? It's going to be unique. It's going to be the first time it's done. I'm sure when it opens the doors, we'll look at it and go, we'd like to do that differently. We'd like to do that. These new things, a bit like when we did Legoland Discovery Centres, tend to be like a good bottle of wine. The longer you have them, the better they get, because you change things constantly to try and improve it. My wine never lasts long enough to get to that. Maybe I just don't buy good wine. And that last thing, again, I think, is this thing, just to underline again, sort of teamwork and partnerships and the depth. This isn't something that Merlin's doing. This really is a Dreamworks Merlin thing, and that hopefully is going to lead to some success for us. So, where does Merlin sit? We think brands are awesome. We really do. We kind of live, eat, sleep brands. And when you get it right, you know, it really is a good thing for your bottom line. And clearly, in our case, has helped us along the way in a huge way. The question we always get asked is Merlin going to become some brand? No, it's the strength of our attraction brands that people want. They don't want to necessarily hear about Merlin, so we're not going to spend a huge amount of time, unless you're in the city, and then we might spend a little bit more time talking to you about Merlin. Back to this delivery, whatever we do has got to live up to say what we've got to do, and when we don't get it right, is we go back and make sure that we change it, and we keep going back to improve it. And then back to this sort of true brand partnerships. You know, something like Dreamworks, we started actually talking to them 5 years ago. And the first bit of the partnership to gain the trust was the shows that we got into Chessington, Gardaland and Hyde Park. And then every time it's kind of another layer as they see the sort of stuff that we do. I Googled Rome and I got the Acropolis when they first put the sign up. So I think I managed to change it very quickly because I thought otherwise you'd think my geography was as bad as my accent sometimes. The big thing here is none of these have happened overnight. They've taken years to build. There's a great quote, again, something that's used inside Merlin quite a lot. You might recognise the chap who sort of said it. You know, every single one of these brands is made up of little things that happen every day. It's the person that's serving you coffee in the coffee shop who says, "You having a nice day? How are the kids? What's your favourite ride?" and engagement and sort of thing. And it's to do with the right piece of merchandise that somebody goes, oh, look, I've won this because I managed to go on the Smiler. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of little things. And again, that's what we try and do, and that's why we try and instill it. Merlin's never been about, and will never be about, 4 or 5 guys at the top. It's about 26,000 people delivering that every day. In the words of Bugs, it's a quick sort of run through. Hopefully, it's been a little bit interesting for you. Thanks very much for listening, and thank you.